Hi, shalom friends. It's universally accepted that a day has 24 hours. But what's interesting to think about is which one of these 24 hours is actually considered the beginning of a day. In the Western culture, 12 midnight becomes AM. So essentially, the calendar day, a new day begins at midnight. And of course, if you were online trying to grab a bargain, you would have to buy it on this day before midnight, because once it's midnight, it's already the following day. But in Judaism, we have a very different approach. The day actually begins with the setting of the sun. And this is based on a biblical principle where God, who creates the world in 6 days, at the end it says, Vayhi erev vayiboker. It was evening and morning. It was one day. Being that first is mentioned evening, we know that we count the beginning of a day with the evening followed by the day. But let's consider this a little bit. A day means something new. The rising of the sun in all cultures and in the human psyche means a new beginning. And a sunny disposition means enthusiasm and joy. And it's very logical to suggest that a day should begin with the sun's arrival. Why in Judaism would we begin a fresh beginning, a new day, paradoxically when the sun is setting? So now the sun has set and it is dark outside, dark enough that the stars can be easily seen. And now we say, guess what? A new day has begun. It seems so incongruous, darkness with the beginning of a new day. Well, our sages of blessed memory shared with us many beautiful insights, and one of them is the following. In truth, a new day begins with the night because true growth is preceded by effort. We would like to see success as natural as breathing. So even if we just did put in a modicum of effort, we would like to see results. But reality is we have to often work hard, sometimes even struggle against inertia, against ignorance, against weakness, against fatigue, against indifference. I mean, there's so many things that often stop us from being productive. Indeed, we have to deal with darkness, the absence of light. But when a person perseveres, struggles, and ultimately is successful in piercing the darkness, and then is able to see the light proverbially at the end of the tunnel, actually he realizes that the struggle itself was the beginning of growth. The darkness was actually the beginning of a new day. This is a very powerful lesson for us, and one that has to be taught and incorporated. Things that come easily are often as easily lost, but things that we struggle with and through often end up leaving us with something enduring and something very precious. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov has a charming parable in this regard. In days of old, there were a group of people that didn't have any actually fixed income, and they lived they were drifters. I guess in a sense you could call them hobos. They would go from town to village and village to city and city back to the town, and essentially live off people's generosity. Well, in the course of the travels, there was a Jewish man who became very friendly with a Gentile man, and they would often talk together and discuss their successes, and many times they would share the same park bench to sleep in. One day, the Jewish fellow says to the Gentile, he says, my friend, we really struggle a lot to have a good meal. But I want to let you know, next week is a special day. You are guaranteed to have a magnificent meal. It's, in fact, a banquet. And the Gentile says, what are you referring to? Are we being invited to a wedding? He says, no. Actually, the Jews are going to celebrate Passover next week on Tuesday. So Tuesday night, every Jew sits by a magnificent banquet. And there's a custom that no Jew should be left out. So all you have to do is go to a synagogue, sit in the back, and pretend you're Jewish. Without a doubt, before the night is over, when they leave the synagogue, someone will ask you, do you have a place for the Seder? Say no. When he says, would you like to join me for the Seder? Say yes. And then you'll walk home with him, and he'll have you join this Seder, which is really a magnificent banquet. And you'll thank me for this. Well, the Gentiles learned so much about the Jewish traditions from his friend, he figured that shouldn't be that hard to pull it off. So the night of Passover, he goes to the back, sits with other people, he dozes until the services are over, and then as the people are leaving, a very good-natured man comes over and says, my friend, you're a stranger in town, do you have a place for the Seder? And he immediately remembers to say, no, I don't. Would you like to join me by my Seder? And he remembers instructions. Yes. So come home with me. And as he's walking home, he's dreaming about the banquet that he will soon be able to have. He's brought into a beautiful home. The table is set. There's crystal, and he's already his saliva is beginning. Oh boy, this is beautiful. And it starts off on a high. Everyone is given a cup of wine, and someone says something in Hebrew, and they all drink, and he says to himself, this is a good beginning. And then he sits down, and he's waiting to be served, but of course he doesn't know the order, so he's just waiting, and the master of the house comes out with some celery, cuts it up into tiny pieces, puts it into salt water, and gives everyone a tiny piece. And he eats the tiny piece, and he whispers to the guy next to him, is that all? Because it's not really very satisfying. No, this is just the beginning of the Seder. Don't worry, there'll be a magnificent meal. He said, okay, so when do we eat? He said, oh, 1 second, when we finish the book. And to his horror, a large book is being passed about, and everyone opens it, and he doesn't know how to read Hebrew, he doesn't know the story, he's hungry. And he whispers, when do we eat? Oh, the master will tell the story. And he figures, how long does it take to tell a story? 6 minutes, 10 minutes at most. Well, the master starts reading and droning, and it goes on forever. 45 minutes pass, and the Gentile stomach is really growling, and he's saying, thinking to himself, the meal is going to really be something special. I mean, if I have to wait so long, an hour passes, an hour and 15 minutes, he's about to pass out, until finally the man closes the book, and with a smile he says, everyone drink the second cup of wine, we're about to begin the meal. He drinks the second cup of wine, and he sits in his place. The meal, when does it start? Shh, it's starting now. And the master goes around and gives everyone actually like a flat cracker and not a very big piece. And he says, all together now, we're going to thank Hashem for the beginning of the meal, Hamotzi Lechem, who brings forth sustenance from the ground. He eats the cracker, it has no taste. And it doesn't come with any condiments. There's no peanut butter, there's no butter, there's no spice. Flat. And he whispers, when are we going to eat? He says, very, very soon. And they bring a large platter of vegetables to the table. And the master starts giving out vegetables and sees the stranger. He says with a smile, I could give you just a little bit of the maror, or would you like a lot? And he's so hungry, he says, give me the most you can. And the master says, okay. And he takes this lettuce, fills it with horseradish, and gives it to the man. And the man is so hungry, he takes the lettuce that's filled with horseradish, bites into it, and immediately there's a burning sensation. He begins to tear, and in horror, he just feels like he's dying. He runs out of the house, and he only has one thought. What a crazy, crazy group of people these people are. This is what they call a banquet? You have to pray and talk and then eat something bitter? This is crazy. And he goes to the park bench to go to bed. The next day he meets his Jewish friend who looks overly full. How was it? The Jewish friend says, what a meal, it was great. I've never had such a delicious meal. What about you? He says, well, I think I was in a place where they were not religious. They didn't give me anything. They gave me flat bread, they gave me bitter herbs, and I said, this is no meal, I'm running out. He said, fool. After the bitter herbs comes the meal. If you just would have waited for the next course, you would have been as satiated as I am. So concluded Reb Nachman, that there are people that struggle to become great. They struggle perhaps in their Judaism. And in the midst of eating of the bitter herbs, they say, forget it, it's just not worth it, I'm leaving, I'm out of here. But if they would just understand that once they undergo or go through the bitterness, they will have the sweetness of feeling close to Hashem. Well, this charming parable is not only limited to personal spiritual growth. It's equally true about the nation of Israel, and in fact, even about a marriage. Could you imagine a person who's married and takes over a year to adjust to his wife, and then God helps them with a child, and there's another period of adjustment, and another period of adjustments, and suddenly after 3.5 years, the man says, you know what, this is not for me. And he decides, I'm out. And God forbid, there's a divorce. Well, what I would say to this person is, there's a certain amount of bitterness. Now, it gets good. Hang in there a little longer and you will see that much of the tension will be resolved by itself. It's a matter of accommodation, it's a matter of changing. Some of the tension doesn't come from your family. It comes because you're struggling in your business. In 10 years from now, your business will be much more on a solid foundation. You'll be able to appreciate much more what you have. In fact, we can look at the Jewish people. Almost 2,000 years in exile. We've had a lot of bitter herbs. What we're ready for now is the banquet to begin. Now is not the time to bolt. It's silly. You're part of the Jewish people that have suffered for so long. Should you not wait around for the banquet? It's almost over. The maror, the bitterness is just about ended. The meal and its dessert is coming. So friends, let's hang in there together. Let's understand that the new day has begun. Most of the night has passed. In fact, all of the night has passed. Dawn is breaking. In just another couple of moments, the Mashiach will have come. And at that time, we will see that the pain and the suffering was merely a preparation for the greatness and grandeur that we will experience. May it be soon in our days. Amen.